Hey now, we're live. I'm looking everywhere. I'm like, we are definitely recording. We are live on YouTube. We are live on TikTok. Good morning, everybody. Hey now, 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 hey now. Good morning. Give us a call, 253-263-1540. 253-263-1540. I'm just taking a look at all of my screens. We got the phone lines up. We're ready to go. Give us a call. We are live over on YouTube. I usually have a pop-out chat over there. I'm not saying I'm missing it, but say hello over on YouTube. Hello to you over here on TikTok. For now, thank you, T-Gaz. Good morning, everybody. 253-263-1540. Good morning, B. Hey now, hey now, hey now. Good morning, everybody. I want to get right to business, but I do look forward to taking your calls. But I think we're up and running. Say hello over on YouTube for me. Hello again over on TikTok. Tom, good morning. Good to see you, sir. Always a pleasure. 253-263-1540. I'm getting so close to doing a marathon, but like a real marathon. I feel like the marathon that we started doing was really not the marathon that I wanted to do. I want to do a proper marathon, and I want to test all of the bells and whistles that I've been working to get dialed in. Good to see you. And I'm just, hi, Jamie. And now, see, it muted her comment over there. We'll talk about TikTok in a minute. Good morning, Jess. Good to see everybody. Come on in, get your coffee. Let's get started. Now, today, I encourage you to call and ask me anything. You know, I mean, that really stands any day of the week, but I feel like in the spirit of marketing, 253-263-1540. Ask me anything. Ask me whatever you want. Whatever you want. Waiting to see some activity over on YouTube. It's hard not to get distracted when you have all of these monitors. You know, I'm checking my audio levels. I'm looking at my phone lines. I'm still worried about the refresh issue over there, but we're getting it done. And I'm so excited to get to the point of being able to not just take guests, but to take guests with video, to be streaming the radio show on TikTok the proper way. And we'll finally get all that integrated today. I was up till whatever time last night. I was still doing paperwork. I mean, I was just doing paperwork. You know, everybody has paperwork. And I was like last night listening to the news, doing paperwork so that I could just clear the path after the show today to just focus on dialing in the last bit of this setup here. So I cannot wait. I want to do a proper marathon. I want to include parks in that marathon. I want to be using it as a testing ground for all platforms, a testing ground for all this technology I've implemented. So I'm getting very, very close. I'm getting very, very close. And I think I've dialed in all of the layers and circumvented all of the confusion and issues that exist. So I'm excited for that. I'm excited to talk to you. Grab a pen, 253-263-1540. Americans are saying that they are sticking it to the man by downloading the Chinese equivalent to TikTok, except for that they're not. I think it's called Red Note. It's not the Chinese equivalent. ByteDance has a Chinese equivalent. What's it called? Douyin? Something like that? Douyin? And it's much more educational driven. Much more educational driven. Everybody throws around the term STEAM and STEM. It's all STEAM and STEM. So they're sticking it to the man by downloading some other app. I'm not interested. I feel very good about where we're headed and what we're doing. But I saw something this morning that said, it turns out it's more like their Pinterest. Oh, imagine that. But at some point, we're going to get an announcement on the future of TikTok. And I would imagine, I mean, that's any day now. They're not going to wait for a new administration because that would be past the deadline. So who knows? See a lot of people posting at the last minute, just in case, follow me over here. Meanwhile, I noticed the YouTube numbers are up because I guess people are just naturally trying to find you wherever else you may be, because even though you've been there, maybe you weren't necessarily following somebody there. So now I notice that my YouTube followers are slowly creeping up, which is great. If you're not following over on YouTube, go follow on YouTube. We're live over on YouTube. Hello, Keena. Good morning. I looked over there and saw Keena's comment. By the way, Keena, thank you for the movie recommendation. I was gonna lie. I was gonna tell you that last night I took in a movie. I didn't, but I look forward to it maybe this weekend watching some Jaws 3D. Jaws 3D. Keena, oh my gosh, had me rolling yesterday. So I'm not worried about the future of TikTok. I'm just waiting for an answer because I kind of feel like there's things that I want to do, and TikTok, the fate of TikTok is kind of getting in the way of all of that in a weird way. Not because I'm worried about it, but just because it's up in the air. You're on the air. Who's this? Hey now. The call has been terminated. I didn't hang up on you. I don't know who's calling in, but you hung up. So thank you for that. I'll take this opportunity for a dramatic pause and a much better sip of coffee. This is the coffee I started brewing yesterday. Definitely better. Definitely better. Still nothing like a cup of Dunkin'. So it has come to my attention, there's not a lot of Disney content out there, but it's come to my attention through the very limited amount of Disney content that I see in my feed that Dino Land is gone. I guess the last riders rode T-Spin, which is short for Triceratops Spin. And the carnival games are done. And then I'm seeing posts like, Dino Land was some of the best theming in Animal Kingdom, some of the best storytelling. No, it wasn't. Dino Land is some of the most lazy storytelling to ever come out of Imagineering. Finally, I saw some people that got it right. But when I see people commenting that Dino Land, it was a parking lot. They came up with a story to justify a parking lot. Now, I do think it's kind of cool that Chester and Hester were out. I think they weren't out for the public. I think it was only for cast members. So that's kind of cool. And if you know anything about the backstory of Dino Land, Chester and Hester set up a carnival outside of the Dino Institute to sort of capitalize off of its success. But it was really just a way for Disney to do something on the cheap. And I can appreciate the fact that people are going to miss it. I will not. I do enjoy the dinosaur ride. At the height of that ride's, I was going to use the term fame, but at the height of that ride's success, when it was before they renamed it and they started to stop maintaining it. They started to stop Yeah, right? How else are you going to say that? They stopped maintaining it. But they begun the process of not caring about the ride. But when the ride in its early days, I was much younger, but I loved the ride. Growing up, I loved dinosaurs. Like, I was obsessed with dinosaurs. When Jurassic Park came out, even though I didn't know what to expect, I was blown away. So I loved, what was it, Journey to Extinction or whatever it was called, whatever the original name was. I love that ride. But they haven't been maintaining it. Now I think the ride is still open. I'm certain the ride is still open, but the rest of the land is shut down. I just hope that when they go to retheme the ride, they actually solve the environmental issues, which I would imagine they would, because they're going to gut those animatronics. And I would hope that they. I don't know if they're going to do this, but I know that they need to basically clean the floor of that building. The amount of atomized hydraulic fluid that must be sitting on the bottom of that building, on the floor of that building, in and around the ride path, the amount of atomized hydraulic fluid that must be sitting on that floor. Like, and you know, they would tell you if you ever got a job working on Dinosaur to make sure you had a pair of work boots, a clean pair of shoes in the car, and a trash bag, and to always change your shoes before getting in the car, because if you drug any of that, I don't want to call it dirt because it was much more than dirt, but if you drug any of that into your house, onto your carpets, you were never going to get it off. So I just hope that when Disney actually starts to touch that attraction and to touch that building, that they actually address some of the real issues that maybe the guests will never realize or appreciate, but actually taking the opportunity to overhaul that building, to clean up all the toxicity and create a safer space for those that are actually going to be working there. And I don't think that's something that's often talked about. I remember bringing up the environmental issues on, I've never actually talked about the environmental issues in depth, and not that it was in my notes to talk about today, but and I never, I'll just say it. I would hold back before, especially on the lives in the park, but I think I've reached the point where I don't really care. And I'll never forget learning this when I was being trained as a ride technician for Disney. And they're telling us all of these things. If you get placed over a Dinosaur, the change of shoes and this, that, and the other. They also told us, that whole situation with the atomized fluid on the ground was a result of leaking animatronics. The Dinosaur animatronics on the ride have been, for quite some time, been leaking atomized hydraulic fluid into the environment of the ride. And I'm certain they've never fixed it. And I can tell you that when they brought that up to us, and I go, isn't that an environmental concern for the guests? They go, oh, California over here. Because I had just moved from California not terribly long ago. At that time. So I know in getting rid of the animatronics, they'll get rid of most of that problem, but whether or not they're going to actually choose to clean the floor and take care of that issue remains to be seen. Thank you all over on TikTok. I appreciate the support. I don't usually focus on that, but I see it out of the corner of my eye. So thank you for your support over on TikTok. That helps a lot. 253-263-1540, 253-263-1540. I think it needs to be said. It needs to be said. I hope that they take care of the issue. But the notion that the storytelling is somehow elite in Dino Land is beyond my comprehension. I don't know what you think about it. I personally think that Dino Land, or at least Dino-Rama, because I do appreciate the original version of the dinosaur attraction, but Dino-Rama was always lazy and done on the cheap. Great for kids, but if we're just talking about it from a thematic storytelling perspective, which clearly that has become less and less of an interest both on the guest behalf and on the company's behalf. But if you look at it from that perspective, I don't think it was ever really remotely close to decent storytelling. And in fact, I would argue it was convoluted because you didn't even really know about, it was called Chester and Hester, but unless you cared to know, you didn't really understand what was going on. You were just like, oh, a carnival. Now, I did oddly enjoy Primeval Whirl, even though I never liked Goofy Sky School. I think most grown men will tell you that those Crazy Mouse rides, or whatever you want to call them, are not that desirable to ride. But I did appreciate that one. And it's weird that that space has sat dead for so long. So the land as a whole, that area of Animal Kingdom as a whole, certainly needs a renovation. I don't know how I feel about what they're doing with it beyond Indiana Jones. I always thought the Indiana Jones idea of a retheme was a great idea. I'm trepidatious about anything that Imagineering does these days, particularly when it comes to retheming, because retheming seems to be code for budget friendly. But I do think if done correctly, an Indiana Jones attraction will bring a massive crowd into Animal Kingdom. And what's fascinating to me about that is how far removed Animal Kingdom is from everywhere else on property. So the effect that just on property, I think that will have will be huge. You know, transportation to get there, just people moving across property in their own vehicles to get there. I mean, I'm talking about bus transportation to get there from the resorts, park to park transport, all of it. However people are choosing to navigate, however they're going to get there. But the idea that they can bring a massive amount, in just a few years' time, theoretically, a massive amount of foot traffic into Animal Kingdom would be great for the park. Maybe they'll bring back the nighttime safari, although I highly doubt it. I know they brought it back in limited capacity. I don't think they'll ever bring those screens back. I think they're still sitting there, if you know what I'm talking about, the sunset screens. But making Animal Kingdom a park that could be open later and having more there to do and maybe plussing Pandora a little bit, not a bad idea. Not a bad idea. You certainly can do good by bringing more people into Animal Kingdom and having them stay there longer. I just hope it doesn't take terribly long for them to do it, and I hope that the Indiana Jones ride is superior to any other Indiana Jones attraction they've got, and that is a huge bar to meet. Because I fear all the talent and all the will is over at Universal these days. 253-263-1540. I think that the Indiana Jones attraction in Tokyo is the Indiana Jones ride. I mean, that is the best version of an Indiana Jones attraction that I have been on. 253-263-1540, 253-263-1540. I'm just going to refresh really quick here. So we'll see what happens. But I see these posts where people are like, Dino Land. It's not that big of a deal. And then people go, whoa, you feel that way about Rivers of America? Well, that's right. I don't know if I'd call that hypocrisy, but I don't feel that way about everything. I think that the Rivers of America represents something a little bit different than Chester and Hester's Dino-Rama, but that's just me. Now, I was watching this interview with Jamie Dimon and Leslie Stahl this morning, which I guess is 3 days old already. Jamie Dimon, the CEO of JP Morgan Chase. And he said something that was interesting. And he said it before because I started to look it up. And he made a comment. And again, him saying this on this interview was not the first time that he had said it. It is the first time I have heard this statement from him. But that colleges, universities should not be judged by the grades of their graduates, but by the jobs that they get when they graduate. I'll say that again. Colleges should be judged by the jobs that their graduates receive when they graduate and not by their grades. And I think that is so spot on. Because I remember graduating and, there was no placement. There was no help. Not that I was looking for it necessarily. But I remember that feeling that, I've got this degree, but now what do I do with it? Well, now you're on your own. Go figure it out. The idea that the school should be more active in helping its graduates get jobs, I think is I'm not even going to say it's a brilliant idea because it's so obvious, but it's right. You agree with that, Keena? It's so spot on though. Because how are you really judging the success of a university? How are you really judging the success of an educational institution if you're just judging it off of grades. That's like the ratings, the Nielsen rating system for television. You know, in many ways it's arbitrary because you've set up sort of a false structure to judge. So what does it mean? It doesn't mean anything. It doesn't mean boop. But it's far more valuable to say, hey, did you know that 90% of the people that graduate from said university receive jobs, you know, in this field, that field, and the other, and maybe even more specific than that, because I know there's some of that information can be made available. But the idea that the merits of the institution are judged on job placement, not only would that be great for the business of the university, because it is a business, that would be so good for the country. That would be so good for morale. That would be so good not just for those that are looking to enter the job market, but that would be so good for the future of innovation in this country. That would be so good for just every aspect of our lives to actually at the base level, because then it would motivate. Not that I think our educators necessarily need the motivation, but I think our educational institutions perhaps need the motivation, particularly when we're talking about allocating resources. Okay, I think maybe using that sort of litmus test as a motivator could be huge and very quickly pay dividends, very quickly. Now, I don't know how you enforce or enact something like that. I really don't know. I don't know. And that's the kind of thing that I would love to get somebody on the show to talk about. And I don't know who you get on to talk about. But like, you know what, Keena, find me a guest. I'm tasking. You know why? Because by the time I get off the air, Keena will be like, you talk to so-and-so. But like, that's the kind of person because it's not legislation, right? I mean, it's more of an edict. I mean, can you enact legislation around that? Can somebody champion a bill around that? I just think that is, and I'm sitting there, it's like 6:30 in the morning, you know, watching this. I didn't even get to finish the interview because I had to do this. I was doing other stuff. And I'm like, so I got to go back when the show is done and just take a minute to finish watching the interview. You know, and I like Jamie Dimon. I've never really, you know, and I'll tell you if I don't like somebody, obviously. But I've always thought Jamie Dimon had intelligent things to say, and he spoke in depth about China. And I go back to what I said, you know, just 24 minutes ago. Americans think that they're getting one on their government by downloading some other app that they think is the Chinese equivalent to TikTok, and they don't even have the right app. You know, Jamie Dimon started talking about how, you know, we're doing so good right now economically as a country, but we're not doing good enough. And some of it's, and I'm not an economist. I really, some of this stuff I just don't even understand. And again, great opportunity for a guest to come on and educate all of us together. That's what I'm looking to do here ultimately. As much as I love talking to Ellis, you know, it's like that's what I'm working towards, right? That's the foundation, is to talk to people and learn together. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that I know something that I don't know. But he does make sense to me as somebody with a very basic understanding of these things. What he says does make sense. You know, the idea that the idea that our economy could be doing okay, but not good enough, but severely threatened by a country like China. I think the phrase Leslie Stahl used was like, oh, it's like the best of times and the worst of times. And we're not even really talking about politics in our country. We're just talking about the opportunity for like economic growth and being competitive on the global stage and educating our workforce to be able to compete in areas that maybe we're not terribly competitive in right now. Robotics, artificial intelligence, programming, microprocessing, all of the things that are going to build the future cities like we were talking about yesterday. All of those things that, and I don't think that we're we're not dialed into it. I just don't think we're quite competitive the way we need to be. But what do I know? And what he's saying is kind of speaking to that, hey, we're not doing bad, but we're not doing good enough. And, our footing is feeble. Our footing is, we're wobbly. We're wobbly right now. And I'm going to keep going back to the idea of having guests and bringing people on and talking about things like robotics and programming and things, entry-level things like that we can use to introduce people to new things. Maybe we're talking about, STEAM and STEM and educating kids on things like this, but maybe also we're talking about people who are in their 30s or 40s, just completely changing jobs, completely changing career sectors and moving into a whole new sphere. But I think a lot of it has to come with enlightenment and educating people. So it was an interesting interview. Go find it. I was watching the extended version, and I kind of stopped around that point where he was talking about the notion that, we're doing okay, but some of it's kind of predicated on a lot of smoke and mirrors. We could be doing better. We could be more competitive. Now he would be a good guest. Now that's the kind of guy. Now listen, 2-3 years from now, maybe. But these are the kind of people that, you have to listen to, because you could go, oh, yeah, well, he's the CEO of a big bank. But, yeah, he's the CEO of a big bank. He knows how it works, right? And he understands our place on the world stage. And then he starts talking about GDP and all of that. And I'm not going to even sit here and pretend to regurgitate anything that I heard. But he just talks about how much better we're doing right now than other nations, and how we're the envy of other nations. But then at the same time, a lot of what looks good on paper for us is built up on inflation. And that's where I'm like, what? And then that's where I'm like, wait, I need to better understand that, because that is, to her point, sort of talking out of both sides of your mouth. Not that I think he's being hypocritical, but I think it's a much more nuanced conversation. And now that's like a realm for me where I would love to be schooled, right? Like I would love to find somebody like a Paul Krugman or somebody like that. Paul Krugman would be a great guest. I don't even know what is Paul Krugman doing these days. Like that somebody find me Paul Krugman. Ellis to the Batmobile. Somebody find me Paul Krugman. 253-263-1540. 253-263-1540. So I'll watch the rest of that later. But I love the idea of judging our colleges. Not judging, but for lack of a better phrase, grading the success of our educational institutions on job placement. I think that would have so many benefits to actually look at things that way. I don't know what you're OMGing over there, Kina, on YouTube, but thank you for letting me know that it's working over on YouTube. 253-263-1540, 253-263-1540. Let's review. Dinoland, not going to miss it. Americans think that they're getting one over on their government by using an alternate version of TikTok in China. It turns out it's more like Pinterest. And Jamie Dimon thinks that colleges should be judged on job placement for their graduates and not grades. And I agree wholeheartedly. Which brings us to our next conversation. I talked a little bit yesterday about Progress City. And I started to think, what an opportunity, particularly when you look at like all the conversation that's already being had around Southern California and the fires and rebuilding. And, I hear Gavin Newsom talking about Los Angeles 2.0 and all these things. So hear me out. This is what I'm proposing. Bob Iger has always wanted to run for office. Bob Iger has always wanted to be the president, a leader in government. Bob Iger's parting gift to the nation, his parting gift to the company, his parting gift to Walt Disney's legacy, if he so cared to do it, would be to build Progress City. Imagine, because they've got the land, that Bob Iger said, hey, we are going to commit to building an area where people can live and work for us, and if they just want to live there and work nearby, whatever, but we're building Progress City, the prototypical city of tomorrow. We're going to partner with companies like Apple and this one and that one, and we are going to see Walt's vision realized, and we are going to use this to lead the nation in city building, in smart city building. Like, imagine making that bold move. You know, the company's doing just fine, are they not? I mean, that's what they say. So why not devote some money to taking a real risk, which would also cement you as a leader, and it would prop your legacy up in a way that maybe it could really use. Right? Disney could build Progress City. It's a nod to Walt. And you can go, well, that's crazy. Why would they do that? Costco just announced that they're literally building condos above a Costco in California. Now, I don't know where they're doing that, and I don't know if that's going to be impacted by, obviously, what's going on with the fires. But if Costco's building condos above a Costco, then there's no reason why Disney can't build a futuristic city, which is really nothing more than housing on property. Imagine that. Imagine Bob Iger going, you know what we're going to do? We're going to build, we're going to show you what real leadership looks like. You don't even need to be in the government to pave the way. Step aside Elon Musk. I'm going to devote resources to building Progress City in Orlando, and we're going to do something that nobody else would even think that we would take a swing at doing, and we're going to lead this nation in smart city building. Imagine that, Bob. What a legacy. What a legacy for you. By the way, my consulting invoice will be sent right after this program. 253-263-1540, 253-263-1540. I don't think they'll do it. I'm certain they'll never do it. But imagine being that bold. Imagine being that bold of a leader. And you would be partnered up with other companies, which means you'd have sponsorship, and things would be subsidized. People would be chomping at the bit to live on Disney property. It'd be a smart city. It would be Progress City. I mean, I said this yesterday. Imagine if Walt had his vision realized for Progress City, and we would be sitting here today with whatever that looked like. Now, it could cut one of both ways. They could have upkept it. They could have destroyed it. They could have let it fall by the wayside. But I don't want to use the term utopian, because in many ways this is kind of dystopian, but if you think about in a perfect case situation where they would have actually built Progress City back when they broke ground on the Florida project, imagine where that, not just where that would be today, but where we might be today. Maybe the Walt Disney Company would be more of a tech endeavor. Maybe they'd be more of a tech company and less of a media company. Maybe we would have smart cities all over the country. But I mean, that's leadership for you, right? That would be such a bold thing to do. Imagine that. Imagine that. Now, do I think Bob Iger's the guy for it? No. So even if he wanted to do it, I don't think he's got the ability to do it. I really don't. I don't think he knows how to get out of his own way. 253-263-1540, 253-263-1540. Call me, ask me anything today. The phone lines are open. You can ask me anything any day of the week, but here I am saying to you to ask me anything. Let's make it interesting, because all I really want to do right now is get off the air and start to implement so I can get to this marathon, because I'm chomping at the bit to get to a marathon. I think it'll be so much fun. I got stuff for the kitchen. Okay, the garage is set up better than ever. I have all the Grogu parts. in the garage, ready to go to be worked on. I ordered a bunch of stuff for that. I just printed something else on the printer last night, a case, not a phone case, like a small case for a computer. I got everything ready to go. I'm dialing in at this point, but I've got everything ready to go, everything implemented, and I think it would be so much fun to finally do like a proper like marathon. Now, I don't want to sit here and commit to how long or whatever, but I love the idea of doing like a major marathon. Now, obviously, you can't do it forever, but I do love the idea of being able to hit go, spend a ton of time streaming, play a video, go to bed, wake up, cut in, do a radio show, maybe drop another video on so I can go post the podcast, whatever, cut back into the video. Hey, we're in the park now. Leave the park, throw it to a video, cut back. Hey, we're home now. Let's play Fortnite, whatever. You know what I mean? And just keep it going. I have the Spotify room set up. I think that's a lot of fun. So I just think it'll be really what I wanted to do last time without even knowing fully what I was trying to do last time. And I don't know what the fate of TikTok is, but either which way, doing something like that for as long as possible, like I say, I can't imagine more than 30 days, but doing something like that and trying to just go. And obviously I would sleep. I'm not going to kill myself doing it. But having the functionality of being able to do a replay and then cut back in and make it seamless and integrate the parks into it and showcase and test all of this technology, like I'm very, very close. Very, very close. So that's what I'm ready to do. Now, at the same time, I'm sitting here with the news on and I'm just like, my heart bleeds for what's going on in California. And I'm like, oh my gosh, how can you do anything but want to like go help these people? And obviously they're still in the midst of it, and it's potentially going to get really bad these next couple days. But then you start to look at all this and you go, is my priority in life really social media? Like, why not just like when the dust settles, why not just go out there, I'd say roll up your sleeves, but and get to work. In many ways, that's kind of, where my mind goes in situations like this, where you always want to like jump in and help where you can. And then you start to kind of measure your place in things. And you go, all right, well, here I am doing a dopey little podcast, trying to build up a media thing and, talk to people and engage with people and have honest conversation and maybe learn something, bring some guests on. Like, what's the real value? So figure it out. We'll figure it out. Yeah, I love to have fun. It's fun to have fun. That's why it's called fun. But when you look at things like that are actively going on in the world, it does. You do get to a point, if you care, where you start to question what you're doing and you're like, maybe I should be doing something else, And I think that's why my pursuit of not just diversifying the content and diversifying the platforms and diversifying the revenue, I know a lot of that is business strategy. But a lot of it really does come out of wanting a sense of purpose and not wanting to feel like a digital babysitter and wanting to feel like you're contributing something better to the discourse. I'm not trying to pick on Ellis, but I love talking to Ellis, and I laugh like crazy when Ellis calls in. But I didn't set up this foundation to just take calls from the audience. What I would love to have is a guest on and then be able to take calls from the audience. So then maybe you get to ask somebody like a Paul Krugman. Is it Krugman? It's Krugman. But then you can ask them a question, because I'm set up for it, right? I've got the phone lines here. So we get a guest on, and then I can actually have people call in and ask them questions. Then the quality of this content becomes so much better. But I'm looking at it right now. I'm 40 minutes into this. I'm ready to do an ad break in the hopes that somebody calls in and I could buy myself some time. I'm just being real with you. Now, I will tell you, I've got 3 or 4 messages to respond to in terms of guests. So it's definitely happening. But what I won't do is do 3 hours of, this. It's a new year, which means it's time to spice up your kitchen. Pampered Chef has all the goodies from spatulas, mandolins, amazing pots and pans, and knives. Plus, don't miss out on small appliances like the deluxe air fryer and coffee maker. Spice up your kitchen today. Check out Colleen Herman at pamperedchef.com/PWS/Colleen Herman. pamperedchef.com/PWS/Colleen Herman. With no estate plan, you could be leaving those you love the most with high taxes, probate fees, an incomplete or divided estate, and legal fights and fees. If you live in Florida, contact RK Law for a free consultation today to discuss options and tools you have available to protect your home, savings, and estate for those you love the most. To get started, send an email to Russell at rklawpro.com, Russell at rklawpro.com, or call 786-566-2456 today. Last minute shipping from the theme parks. Maybe you are local, you need a notary or a P.O. box. Visit my friends at the UPS store located right behind the Magic Kingdom at 6526 Old Brick Road. That's the UPS store located right behind the Magic Kingdom at 6526 Old Brick Road. And as always, William.bailey is available for all of your travel needs, whether you're planning a Disney cruise, a Disney trip, or just a cruise, or quite frankly, anywhere else in the world. William provides a customizable experience at competitive rates. Check out William Bailey Travel. You can reach out to William Bailey through the form on my website, royces.com, or William.bailey at academytravel.com. Now, yesterday, and thank you to all of our sponsors, yesterday, I was doing paperwork, like I said. I have my table right over here to my left, and there was some business-related thing, and I didn't know the answer to it. So I reached out to RK Law, right? Not only did I get an immediate response, okay, it was, Russell cracks me up. It was like, I was like, am I supposed to do this? And he writes back, nope. And I was like, thank you, because I'm not questioning it. Now, eventually, I got follow-up to that, and I write back to him, I go, that's why I called RK Law. And he's like, yeah, for the one-word, real savvy legal advice. And I said, listen, if you're charging by the quarter hour, one word is all I need, okay? Right? I'm calling you for advice. I'm messaging you for advice. You say, nope. Yes, sir. Cool. Cut the clock. So go reach out to Russell. He's fantastic. And thank you for being a sponsor as well. But I just had to share that little moment because it cracked me up. I'm like, what are you talking about? You know, most attorneys, they're going to try to get you to the hour. In fact, if they can get you to 0.6, they're going to bill you for the hour, even though they're supposed to be rounding up at the quarter hour. But it depends who you talk to. Now, I remember one time, I had a business partner back in the arcade day file this under stories I didn't know I was going to tell today. By the way, 253-263-1540, 253-263-1540. Give me a call. So I had a business partner that I wanted to get rid of because he was brilliant. And he got an attorney. And I'm like, well, that's silly because when you set up a corporate structure, you have corporate bylaws. So we have an exit strategy here. We don't really need to involve an attorney. So I didn't get an attorney. And he wanted some ridiculous amount of money that was completely out of scope. And I remember getting on the phone with the attorney. Now, mind you, the attorney sends me a letter in the mail, right? Like from a courier. But it's addressed to my soon-to-be former business partner, even though it's being sent to me. So I already knew I was dealing with half a deck So I'm on the phone. I'm on the phone with this guy, and I said, "Listen, none of this isn't happening." I said, "I'm not giving your client a dime." "You don't tell me what to do. I'm an attorney. Blah 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 blah." I said, "Well, let me tell you something, Mr. Attorney. I'm going to do you a favor and drag this phone call out as long as possible so you can continue to round up your client's bill as much as possible, because that's the only money that you're going to see from this situation." End of story. I think when it was all said and done, I got a check. I think when it was all said and done, even if I wrote a check, I got assets that outweighed the check or something. I know that when it was all said and done, I definitely got the up end of the deal, which makes sense. But I'll never forget that moment. I'm like, you'll be rounding up because that's the only way you're going to make money here, sir. I don't need an attorney. By the way, that's often one of the things that people don't realize is, you need an attorney for things like estate planning and all of this. But like in a situation like that, like there was no reason to introduce attorneys into the situation because we had corporate bylaws. And all we had to do was honor them, which is all we wound up doing in the end. So it's just kind of funny how that works. Like anything else in this world, do your homework. But when you need a pro, contact RK Law. You're welcome, Russell. 253-263-1540, 253-263-1540. All of that for an extended ad. Even though I didn't mean it as an extended ad, but he's just a really good dude and he's very helpful. And I just found that to be a hilarious exchange. So, I don't know. I know there's hearings today. I'm looking around me as if like there's a TV on. I know there's hearings today with some of the nominees, the cabinet nominees. And I know that we're waiting on the Supreme Court announcement on the future of TikTok. We've got the inauguration coming up. These next couple days with the wildfires, these winds are picking up, so there's a lot going on there. It's a lot. It's a lot. And we're just about halfway through the first month of the year. And I think I would encourage people at this point to really take a deep breath and to look around and to realize that, and I guess you're going to hear me saying this a lot as we move forward here, and I said it yesterday and I said it the day before and I'll say it again right now. But I think we got to start taking a look around as with all this volatility. I mean, like, to the point that Jamie Dimon was making with Leslie Stahl is like that, like there's all these excuse the fire language, but there's all these fires starting to slowly burn around the world. And I think we got to start to look at our neighbors and the people that we interact with on a daily basis and just try to find a way to show just a little more appreciation. I mean, we're so quick to point out all the problems, all the differences. But when everything is like, we're two weeks and dates and calendar years and all this, it's all arbitrary anyway. But we're 2 weeks into the calendar year. And everything's a mess. I don't know what's going on with this peace deal in the Middle East. And I'm oversimplifying it. I can't even keep up with that. I saw some of that eking out last night, and I saw a little bit of it this morning, and it looks like they're getting close to a deal. What does that really mean in the grand scheme of things? Who knows? But I think it just goes a long way with all the chaos to just look at somebody for 2 seconds, irrespective of how much you know them or don't know them, and just find a way to share a little appreciation. I'll use an example. I go to Dunkin' Donuts, and it didn't occur to me until a couple days ago, because the Dunkin' Donuts I go to, and I talk about Dunkin' Donuts way too much, and if you look at my Dunkin' app, I go there way too much, and at some point they'll sponsor me, so this will all be worth it. But I go there, and I'm looking, and I'm like, this Dunkin' and this Walmart is probably busier than any standalone Dunkin' Donuts in this area because of the Walmart traffic, because of the Walmart employees, which are many because the store's huge. So I'm in there and I'm waiting. And you could see how hard the people behind the counter are working. It's mostly in the morning. I think it's like all female. And then there's this one gentleman who works in the afternoon that I see all the time. And he just is always, they're all always working. And he's always just very polite. Thank you, sir. Have a nice day. Not that I like being called sir. It makes me feel old. But they're just hard. They're all hardworking people. And if I had to guess, most of them are maybe even college kids. And it looks like they even train people there because it's such a busy location. From time to time, I'll see a new face that I don't recognize. But I go there frequently. So you see the familiar faces. You recognize how hard they're working. You hear bits and pieces of the aggravated customers, not because they're doing anything wrong, but because people are just people. There's a DoorDasher person, whatever, comes in and she's all miserable. And where's this? And I'm just observing. And then so the girl behind the counter who, I recognize, I don't know these people's names. But exchange 2 sentences at most on any given day to these people. But I appreciate them. I appreciate them more than they realize. And I realized the other day why I appreciate them so much. So I'm waiting, and they're super busy, and there's usually 2 of them. And in this particular moment, the girl is working the register and then running over to do the food prep, and the other girl had just come back. So, oftentimes one person's running the whole darn thing. So she hands me my food, and she goes, I'm so sorry to keep you waiting. And I usually mobile order and time it, and I just grab my food and go. But yesterday, I was trying to find the French cruller, which still evaded me. So I didn't mobile order. I went in to assess the situation about this fakakta donut. To which she initially goes, yeah, we didn't even get any today. I go, oh, really? She goes, yeah, but if you really want one, you can go to another Dunkin' Donuts. I'm sure they have them. And I'm like, do you realize how bad that would be if I went to another Dunkin' Donuts in pursuit of a French cruller, especially considering I live right next to this one? Like, on top of the fact that would be just bad anyway. So whatever. So I'm waiting for my food. She said, I'm sorry to keep you waiting. And I said, let me tell you something. I will happily wait anytime I am here. You all work so hard, and I appreciate that. And her face lit up, and she's like, oh, thank you. And I said, no, thank you. And I grabbed my stuff, and I left. And it dawned on me in that moment not only why I felt the need to say that because I meant it, but why I feel that way. And why I don't even mind waiting. And it's because it is the experience of going for the cup of coffee. And I could probably walk, even though it would take too long. And I'm trying to get things done. I'm always trying to get things done. Okay? But it's the experience of getting there and parking my car and walking in and getting the cup of coffee and saying hello to somebody and saying have a nice day and having that moment to just sort of be forced to slow down. Which is why waiting doesn't bother me, because I'm usually always trying to run and get the next thing done. So having the experience that gets me out of whatever groove I'm in, to take a breath, to slow down, and to get whatever it is that I'm seeking. And with a cup of coffee, you're not just seeking a cup of coffee, right? You're not just seeking energy. There's a lot more in a cup of coffee. You could really go in depth about the psychology of a cup of coffee. But the fact that, and coffee is sincerely a drug, okay, caffeine is sincerely a drug, but the ritual attached to getting the cup of coffee, the opportunity that it represents for me to slow down. It's one thing to make a cup of coffee at home, which I will enjoy. I often find those these days to be supplemental. But going and getting a cup of coffee, the consistency of knowing that I can go and have this little moment to escape whatever it is. Maybe I'm troubleshooting something and it's, making my head hurt. Not literally, but I got to get away from the screen, or I'm waiting for a call, and I just want to breathe, or whatever it may be. But it requires people. It requires people to provide that moment. And if somebody doesn't get up, and it's going to turn into a commercial about Fred right now, but if somebody's not getting up at 3 o'clock in the morning to make those donuts, if somebody's not getting up at 5:30 in the morning to go open up that store, if somebody's not getting up to do all of those things, then I can't just hop in my slides and jump in my car and go, waddle in there and get what I expect. And I have this expectation that when I go, it's going to be there. And I think that we often forget that that isn't just because it's there, it's because it requires human beings to maintain it. So I think instead of constantly looking at people as differences and constantly looking at people as, opposition, maybe we should seek to find appreciation, even in the little things. Because I don't know where these donuts come from. And I'm not even trying to be funny, but there's somebody out there that is delivering, because they're not making those donuts in that store in a Walmart. So there's somebody every morning, and I'm not even eating donuts every day, but I'm just making the observation. There's somebody every morning, and his name is not Fred, although it could be, but there's somebody every morning that is delivering those donuts. We talked about the truck drivers the other day. It's the same thing. There is a whole backbone of blue-collar folks that keep this whole thing running for us. Sometimes I get a real sense of guilt. Sometimes I get a real sense of guilt that the person that delivered my food, because I ordered a pizza, has to deliver my food and hope that, he can make a living working for whoever it is, DoorDash, Uber Eats, Papa John's, whomever. And I know that that's probably not rational because that's the structure of it all, but I oftentimes have a sense of guilt for that. So I think for me, being able to take a moment and look around and be appreciative of not just the fact that, I'm doing okay. You never know where somebody else is coming from. You never know how good or bad somebody's got it in any given moment. But just finding a way to just share a little bit of appreciation with somebody, even a stranger. I mean, I don't know. I feel like such an old man. But it's just even walking down the street and seeing somebody in my neighborhood, and saying hi to them, and half the times they look at you like, why are you talking to me? And you're like, oh, I don't know, because you were there. I'm not talking to you. I'm just saying hello because it's the polite thing to do. And I'm the first person to say, pleasantries, who needs them? But I think part of it is we're just so cut off. People will say anything to anyone from the safety of their computer screen and their keyboard. But they can barely even smile, fake a smile to say hello or good morning to a neighbor. So I don't know. It was a human moment for me. I remember picking up the phone. I remember it was yesterday, but I picked up the phone and I told somebody about the experience. I said, because I saw it reminds me of when you say have a nice day to a cast member in the parks and their face lights up. Her face lit up. And I was like, wow. I'm so glad that she appreciated what I had to say, but I'm more disappointed that the response to it is so big. Because if it happened more often, not that people would be desensitized to it, but they wouldn't be shocked by it. a little courtesy, a little understanding for the person that's working the cash register, a little understanding for the person on the other end of the phone when you pick up the phone and you're calling customer service, which I talked about the other day too. This is why sometimes I just hang up. If I pick up the phone and I'm calling customer service and I hear somebody on the other end of the line that I don't think is going to get the job done, I'm not going to be rude to them. I hang up. I don't even, nope, next. That's just systematic. Now, conversely, if I'm on the phone with you and you're being rude, okay, or you're doing nothing but corporate speak until on the corporate line, yeah, I'm going to lose my patience. But you get what you put into the machine. So just attempting to be a little more understanding to strangers. I just think oftentimes, especially with customer service, you pick up the phone and you're talking to somebody somewhere else in the country and you don't treat them like a human being because they don't sound like you. And you just feel like, I think that there's this false sense of superiority, and you got to catch yourselves. We're human beings. You got to catch yourselves. But even, like I said, even at the grocery store, even at the cash register at the grocery store, just an extra thank you. I don't know. Maybe it's just me. Maybe I'm just getting old and sensitive. I just look around and I go, wow, people are so quick to tear each other down, but nobody will even just speak up and say thank you. Nothing drives me up a wall more than when I hear people placing an order somewhere and they go, I need. Like, you don't need anything. The only thing you need is some manners. Hi, may I please get? Hi, how are you? I would like to order, or whatever. Like, just some acknowledgement that it's not all about you. 253-263-1540. Do you understand what I'm trying to say? 253-263-1540. Very quiet on the phones today. I don't mind it, but at a certain point I'm going to stop talking to myself here if somebody doesn't call in. 253-263-1540. So we're going to there's a politician that has agreed to come on the show. There is somebody that's going to come on the show, talk to us a little bit about robotics and programming, and I think that that'll be very insightful, particularly for your kids who are looking to get into that kind of stuff. So I think we can both look at that from an entry-level perspective, but then also from a job market perspective and kind of cover both sides of that conversation. And there's a couple other people I got to respond to that said that they'd come on the show. So we're getting there. I think an economist, I think perhaps an author, I think a journalist. But these are the types of people that I want to start talking to. And at some point, the idea is you'll get video, which means if you miss it live, we clip out the interviews and we put them up places for you to check out. We do the whole thing. That's part of the backbone that I built. Be able to take guests, produce the video, and not just do it live, but then crank it out on all the platforms, both in clips and in its entirety. That's the idea. So we're getting there. But Rome wasn't built in a day. Well, we'll get there. I feel good about it. I got a lot done yesterday. I was going till, I think I was doing paperwork till like 10 something, 11 o'clock at night, like so many other folks. And sometimes I'm asking myself, what is it? And sometimes just paying bills. But you're like, oh, there's a pile of paperwork. What is it? You know how you go through the paperwork and you look at everything and then you put it back in a pile and you're like, all right, that'll be tomorrow's problem. So I did that and I was like, I still have enough energy to chip away at this. So I grabbed it again and I go, all right, well, that's a bill. I'll do that one. Let me go pay that bill. So it was a toll. You drive through the toll and it scans your license plate. I don't have any of those Easy Pass things. So I log in, I go pay it. All right, done. One piece of paperwork, check. File that away. File is a pile of papers in a drawer. Let me go pay the next one because there's two different services. I can't pay. I'm like, all right. Now I'm like, I want to go to bed. I want to lay down. I want to relax. I want to be done doing things, but I can't pay this bill. So then I pick up my phone. I'm like, there's a QR code. I scan it. I type everything in. I've now typed in everything 4 times. I can't pay the bill. I said, you know what? It's $3.80. I can't pay you. You obviously don't need the $4 that bad because I've now attempted to pay you 4 times. So now your bill goes to the bottom of the pile. Because if you can't figure out why your system's not working, it ain't my problem. But that pile's gotten thinner and thinner and thinner. So today when I end the show, I got to do like one last look at those notes and be like, all right, this is done, this is done, this is done. Then I reconsolidate my list. I have my primary list, and then I have my longer term lists. And then once I'm done reconsolidating my lists, I'm going to fire up all of this equipment around me. And I'm going to do the final dial in of all this tech. So that hopefully tomorrow, instead of being on TikTok on the phone, we could be on TikTok and YouTube with the same feed, and we can do everything the way that I intend to do it in the future, and then hopefully be off to the races with this marathon any day now. Any day now. And I know people love that because they get to check in on you and see where you're at any given moment. I think it'll be a lot of fun. And I think, the one thing we need to be cognizant of as we do these things, they do end. They do end. And just because they end doesn't mean that I'm no longer breathing. And I love doing these things. But then what happens is it ends. And then it's, oh, my God, I don't know what I'm going to do with myself. So there becomes this unhealthy side to it. And I'm being very cautious about that because I love the idea of doing it. But then it's like, inevitably everything must come to an end and people need to like breathe. And, I don't know. I think part of it, as much as I love doing it, part of it's very unhealthy. 253-263-1540. That's the number every show. 253-263-1540. Write it down. You can call in today. You can call in next show. If you have anything, anytime. And I always tell people, look, the podcast is available wherever you listen to your podcast. The name of the podcast is Under the Influence because the idea of the show was to really take a look at other content creators and other people of influence in the world and start talking to them and getting insight from them. And then it sort of pivoted a little bit, but not really. And I kind of brought in the weekly call-in format, which is something we did in the early days of the TikTok lives, sporadically. Because, again, I think the foundation is here for much bigger conversation. So write the number down, 253-263-1540. Because when we start having guests on, you're going to want to call in and talk to people. We might have somebody on, and maybe you know who they are, maybe you don't. But if you got something to say, or if you have a question you want to ask, I want to be able to facilitate that. That's the real value in what we're doing. Let me run these ads again. And you know what? I don't need to. I could talk for another hour, but what's to say? I've said it all. I've got my notes. And at this point, I'm just here to remind you that it's a new year, which means it's time to spice up your kitchen. What does that mean? It means it's time to go to Pampered Chef because they've got all the goodies from spatulas, mandolins, amazing pots and pans, and knives. Plus, don't miss out on small appliances like the deluxe air fryer and coffee maker. So spice up your kitchen today by going to pamperedchef.com/PWS/Colleen Herman. pamperedchef.com/PWS/Colleen Herman. With no estate plan, you could be leaving those you love the most with high taxes, probate fees, and incomplete or divided estate, and legal fights and fees. If you live in Florida, contact RK Law for free consultation to discuss the options and tools you have to protect your home, savings, and estate for those you love the most. To get started, send an email to russell@rklawpro.com, russell@rklawpro.com, or call 786-566-2456 today. Last minute shipping from the parks. Maybe you're local and need a notary. Maybe you need to make some Xerox copies. Maybe you need a P.O. box. Well, my friends at the UPS store located right behind the Magic Kingdom got you covered. 6526 Old Brick Road. That's 6526 Old Brick Road. Go check out the UPS store right behind the Magic Kingdom. And as always, William.bailey is available for all of your travel planning. If you're looking to book a Disney cruise, just go to Disney or book a cruise or anywhere else in the world. William provides a customizable experience at competitive rates. So check out William.bailey Travel. You can go to my website, royces.com, to fill out the travel form, or reach out to William.bailey at academytravel.com. I appreciate all of our sponsors. Now, I'm going to end with this. File this under a PSA. I am not a software developer. I did not develop the app that is TikTok. I did not develop Instagram. I didn't develop Discord. I am not a software developer. However, I do recognize that the people that develop these apps provide tools, features, to do a variety of different things. One of them is moderation. Now, different platforms use different terminologies. And when you're doing this, you have to use the tools that are given to you. Otherwise, what are you using the platform for? You see? In other words, if I have a paintbrush and I have an easel, and all I do is keep using the same one color paint over and over and over again, I leave all the other paints sitting off to the side, totally capped, never opened. What's the point of having all the other paints? You know, Batman's got a full utility belt. Full utility belt. I'm reminded of the Adam West series, you know, in the movie. He even had bat shark repellent. He has all these tools in his belt because at some point he intends to use them all. I mean, Batman doesn't have things in his utility belt that he's not going to use. So why am I saying all of this? Because if I use one of the tools in said app, let's use Discord as an example. If I use one of the tools to moderate, kick, ban, remove, edit, truncate, delete, uninvite, if I use one of the tools that the software developers so kindly provided, that is the entire conversation. That is the entire conversation. You understand what I'm trying to say? Now, if I use one of these tools that the software developers chose to implement, I often find that the best way to go about doing things is to use comparable tools on other platforms to effectively execute that decision in parallel. Lots of big words. Because half the people won't listen if I use big words, you see. Typically, it is a sweeping gesture. In my ineffectiveness, I was capricious in my decision making and only chose to use tools from one singular platform, not all platforms, to moderate my decision. And then there's like an echo chamber, a feedback, a blowback. And if you receive moderation on one platform and think that the solution is then to spam 9 out of 10 people that you know on every other platform, you may just be justifying your initial moderation and inviting additional moderation. So all of that giant speak to say, if I block you, that's it. That's the whole conversation. I'm not interested in having a further conversation. Don't message me and say you want to talk to me. Don't tell me that you supported. I don't care. When you're gone, you're gone. And I'm gone. I'll see you tomorrow.